In this video, we're going to talk about specific performance and why it's important to have the right agreements in your real estate investing business. Coming up. What's up, everybody? It's Jamel Gibbs. Welcome to another video. Listen, in today's video, we're going to talk about specific performance and why it's important to have the right agreements. We're going to look at things from an investor's perspective. I'm going to tell you a story of a deal. This is something that really happened to me recently, and why I'm suing a property owner for a certain amount of money in order to be able to hold that property seller accountable. Now, in this short series that I put together, we spoke about why wholesaling is becoming illegal in multiple areas and how it's a fast-growing trend right now. And we talked about that from an agent's perspective, why agents don't like wholesalers or why there's a disagreement between agents and wholesalers. And if you looked at the previous video, I talked about why this certain property seller hates wholesalers. And you understand things from an agent's perspective, you understand it from a property seller's perspective, but what about from our perspective, right? What about as a real estate investor when sellers don't do what they say they're gonna do all the time, even if it hurts? You guys know how big I am. If you've been watching me for any amount of time, you should know how big I am on doing what I say I'm gonna do all the time, even if it hurts. I've repeated it multiple times over my course on YouTube and my seminars and things like that, right? But what about when somebody else doesn't do what they say that they're gonna do? And that happened to me. This is the first time in 20 years, first time in over 1,000 deals, 2,000 deals that I've ever had to take a seller to court. And I'm going to explain exactly why I'm doing this. It's because we need to hold sellers accountable when we practice good business as well. But before we jump into today's content, do me a favor, go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe to my channel if you're not subscribed already. They consider me to be the family-oriented entrepreneur. Sometimes you'll notice I'll have my wife in some videos, my kids, things like that. But I'm really trying to help family-oriented people become better business practitioners and make more money in their businesses. So if this is something that interests you, be sure to subscribe to my channel, click the notification bell. I come out with videos multiple times per week, and leave a comment. Let me know what your thoughts are on this particular topic, and share it with others as well. So on to today's information. What exactly is specific performance? Well, I've taken the liberty of going ahead to Google what specific performance is, and I'm gonna read this verbatim. It basically says, specific performance is a specialized remedy used by courts when no other remedy, such as money, will adequately compensate the other party. If a legal remedy will put the injured party in the position he or she would have enjoyed had the contract been fully performed, then the court will use that option instead. And this is from FindLaw.com. I'm not related to FindLaw.com at all, but that's basically what their version of specific performance is. And if we look at this, if you're an agent, you understand what specific performance is. Most investors who are brand new probably wouldn't know what specific performance is, but it's good for you to understand what specific performance is. Specific performance is basically used when one party is looking to force the other party to act upon what the original agreement was in the first place. In layman's terms, that's basically what specific performance is. I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story of why I'm taking action to hold a seller accountable, and why you should hold your sellers accountable as well, just like they would hold you accountable to close a deal if the shoe was on the other foot. A little while back, we're talking over 6 months ago, I signed an agreement with a seller. And this particular seller, we were going through the closing process, and my attorney at the time, he basically stated that he can't close the deal because the seller needed to probate the house. Now, this seller didn't have the funds to be able to probate the house. So we started the probate process, and we paid for the probate up front as compensation to the seller. So rather than giving the seller an earnest money deposit, our earnest money was in the form of us paying for the probate process to get started. And it was only a couple $1,000s at that particular time that we were going to pay in increments to the probate attorney. The attorney came back to us and said that it was going to take a little longer for the entire process to go through, because here in North Carolina, after you file the documents and you get the estate planned and all of that stuff, basically you have to put the property in a newspaper so that anyone who has a lien against the property has 90 days to get their money back out of the property, out of the estate, right? So we had to go through this entire process. Ultimately, it took us 5 to 6 months to accomplish this whole thing. But during the interim of going through all of this, we were under contract with the seller. Our contract expired because we weren't expecting to have to go through this long of a probate process. In fact, this is the first time in 20 years that I've ever gone through a probate process that took this long, right? So we went back to the seller, and our original agreed upon price was $50,000. We said to the seller, look, we've already started the probate process, but we need a contract extension. He said, I'll be happy to give you a contract extension. We signed it for another 6 months, right? So he signed the agreement, we executed everything. And on top of that, he came to us and said, look, I'm willing to extend it for 6 months if you're willing to give me another $10,000. It was still worth it because we got the property at a good deal. So rather than $50,000, the seller was going to get $60,000. So we signed the agreement, happy. The property went up in value because of the whole pandemic thing, and you know what's happening with properties is a seller's market right now. Property values rose in some cases by 30, 40, 50% in certain areas. This was one of those properties where it went from $115,000 property up to $150,000 property, right? So we were happy to give the seller an additional $10,000 in order to make this deal work. So we were to communicate with the seller the entire time. And come April, I said, you know, I gave him an update. It was through text message. I said, look, the probate attorney is going to be ready by June 3rd. Between June 3rd and June 15th, we're going to be ready to close. And he said, that's fine. I said, I need to get my contractor in so I can get a full repair estimate, because my intentions was to take down this property and use it as a rental property. It was just a really good deal. And we were going to get a good amount of rent out of this particular property, at least $1,000 a month, right? So he said he was out of town because he's a truck driver. He wouldn't be able to do it. He started acting a little funny around this time. So I didn't think nothing of it. Come towards the ending of May, when I knew we were going to be ready to close, I contacted him and said, the attorney should be ready in a few days. We need to get the closing process started. And his entire tone completely changed at that point. He said that his wife decided not to sell. They were getting a divorce. He came up with all these excuses, which I don't know if they're true or not. But ultimately, he said that he's not going to be selling me the house. And I explained to him, look, I have money into this thing. I can sue you for specific performance. I can force the sale of the property. And he said, look, I'll just give you back your earnest money and everything like that. Ultimately, I didn't want to go through the entire court proceedings and things like that. So I agreed to just take the money back. So since he gave me this whole sob story, he said that I can pay you in July. I can pay you around early July, your earnest money deposit back. So today I contacted this seller and I said, look, I'm looking for my earnest money deposit and the money I have into the deal back. I'm not even going to charge you interest. I basically said, let's meet up so I can collect. He hasn't contacted me back yet. And that's fine. You know, it's only been a day, right? But as I'm sitting there thinking about the entire process, I just decided to go to the tax assessor's website just to do a little bit of research on the property to make sure this guy was telling the truth. Lo and behold, he sold the property to another investor back in April 22nd to be exact. And he sold it using the attorney that I recommend. My attorney that I usually close deals with, he sold it using that particular attorney. Now, I doubt that my attorney was aware of what was actually going on. I don't think he gets down like that. But at any rate, what I'm looking to do is take this seller and hold him accountable. He sold his property. I have money in the deal. We're technically still under contract even as of today. So I'm going to sue this seller for specific performance, or after contacting the attorney that I contacted earlier today, I can sue for what I was looking to make on that particular property. and the money that I put into the property. So I say all of that to say this, you know, as real estate investors, we want to be doing the right thing all the time, but sometimes things happen in the business where we come across hurdles, or we come across situations where we have to hold sellers accountable. I've had this happen a couple of times where sellers just decided to back out of the deal, and I've never taken action because I didn't have anything into the deal, or it was early on in the deal to where I really didn't have any time into it. But in this particular case, we had over 6 months invested in this particular deal. I've had money invested in this particular deal, and I was looking forward to closing this deal to make a lot of money, as you know, I held on to this property long term. Now I got to teach this particular seller a lesson. So there's a couple of things that you can do when it comes to deals like this. One, you can sue, you can file a memorandum, which you should always do. In a market like this, where this is a seller's market, there's going to be a lot of snakes come out, a lot of wholesalers looking to undercut other investors, even though there's a contract on the house. This is where filing a memo down at the courthouse, it costs you $50. It's worth doing that. And that's one thing I did not do on this property, and I should have, knowing that we had the probate process. But I really honestly thought that I had this deal in the bag, to be honest with you. But you know, even as an experienced investor, you learn something new every single day. So sue to perform, file a memo, or let it go. And I'm not willing to let this deal go at this point. I'm willing to take this thing to court if I need to, in order to be able to collect the money that I feel like I was going to make on that particular deal. So those are your 3 options. You could sue for specific performance, you definitely want to file a memorandum, or you can let it go. The choice is yours. That's entirely up to you. If you want to know more about specific performance, or if you have a deal that you're considering taking the seller to court on, leave a comment in the comment section. You know, let me know your thoughts on specific performance in general, and maybe we can start a conversation on it. Listen, we want to hold each other accountable, but we also want to hold the other parties that were under agreement accountable to their end of the bargain as well. So yes, we want to practice good business, but they need to practice good business as well. So that's the only way that we're going to become better investors in the end. Listen, I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to this channel, click the notification bell, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.